Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Len Calabrese, past president of the Board of Directors. Today at the City Club, we are fortunate to have a special forum. Special not only because it's a Tuesday, but special also because of our speaker, Jesuit Father Fred Kammer. When social historians look back on national developments in the United States over the past 15 years or so, two trends that very much mark the life of our speaker will surely be noted. One is the increase in the numbers and influence of public intellectuals, thinkers and writers who provide social analysis with keen insight, have experience implementing and shaping public policy, and who are usually passionate advocates as well. The other is the role of faith-based organizations and leaders in the significant public debates of our time. Father Fred Kammer, a man of strong Catholic faith, is a public intellectual who in his writing and in his leadership of Catholic Charities USA has occupied a prominent place at the intersection of faith and civic life. A New Orleans native, Father Fred was ordained a priest in 1976, a graduate of Yale University Law School. He worked for Legal Aid in Atlanta for several years and then was a director for Catholic Community Services. He was at the Bishops' Conference for 2 years, and in 1992 became president and CEO of Catholic Charities USA, serving in that position for 9 years. From 2002 until 2008, Father Fred served as the provincial of the New Orleans Jesuit province and helped to guide their post-Katrina recovery and service to the region's poor and needy. Since March 2009, he has been the executive director of the Jesuit Social Research Institute at Loyola University in New Orleans. An author of 2 books, his third will be coming out next week, entitled Faith, Works, Wonder. So please join me in warmly welcoming back to our Cleveland City Club podium, Father Fred Kammer.
Thank you very much, Len, and thank you all. I want to take a particular angle on the title for today, which is about improving social and economic conditions, and I want to do it sort of in 2 steps. To talk about kind of where the church stands in the public square and then particular issues around human development in the world today in a globalizing society. During the election last fall, and now in the debate over national health care reform, it is common to hear that the Catholic Church or the bishops or a particular bishop have stated a particular position on a public issue or concerning the position taken by a candidate or an elected official. This is nothing new. And I thought it might be helpful to explain the thinking expressed by one such bishop, in this case the Bishop of Rome, Benedict XVI, regarding the role of the church in the public square, and then addressing particular issues that he has just addressed 2 months ago on human development. I'm relying here on 2 major papal documents, the encyclical letter Deus Caritas Est of 2005, and the new encyclical, Veritas in Caritate, which just came out 2 months ago. It may be helpful for those not Catholic to explain, or even for Catholics, to explain what an encyclical is. These encyclical letters, as letters, teaching letters really from the Pope of Rome to the bishops around the world. Much later, in the mid-20th century, the Pope began addressing them as well to the lay Catholic faithful, and still later to men and women of goodwill. In Pope Benedict's first encyclical, which is entitled God is Love, which is what Deus Caritas Est means in Latin, he develops the theme of love first from the nature of God and its revelation in Jesus Christ to the development of what he calls organized charity within the Christian community from the early days of the apostles. From there, he discusses the church's current works of charity in the context of a larger substantive discussion of the relative duties of church and state, of Catholic laity and Catholic church organizations, and then of all citizens, all people, with regard to charity and justice. And it's this discussion that I want to begin focusing on today. Pope Benedict begins by affirming, one, that the pursuit of justice must be the fundamental norm of the state, and two, that the just ordering of society and the state is a central responsibility of politics. In Catholic social teaching, this reflects the proper autonomy of the state, and there are distinct relationships to that role, the autonomy of the state, on the part of the Catholic laity and of Catholic church organizations that Benedict talks about. First, for Pope Benedict, the laity, this would be Catholic and otherwise, they have what Catholic social teaching calls a direct duty to work towards the just ordering of society as citizens, with a specific responsibility to take part in public life. To quote the Pope, building a just social and civil order is an essential task that every generation must take up anew. That's the laity. The Church's institution, however, while respecting the autonomy of the state, has multiple responsibilities set out in different parts of the Pope's first encyclical letter. First, with regard to the just ordering of society, the Church, in a posture of dialogue with the larger society, has an indirect role with respect to the just ordering of that society. The Church presents its social doctrine to civil society, to quote the Pope, as a set of fundamental guidelines offering approaches that are valid even beyond the confines of the Church. Within a framework that sees faith, this is the Church's framework, that sees faith as a purifying and liberating force for the work of reason, Benedict writes that Catholic social doctrine is not intended to give the Church power over the state, but, quote, to contribute here and now to the acknowledgement and attainment of what is just. Benedict insists that the Church, this is as structure, as organization, should not take on the political battle to create a more just society, replacing the state. It's not its role. Yet, and I quote him, yet at the same time she cannot and must not remain on the sidelines of the fight for justice. And so besides the Church's role in rational public discourse that I've already talked about, she has to reawaken the spiritual energy without which justice, which always demands sacrifice, cannot prevail and prosper. What does he mean by this? He means, as we've seen in the healthcare debate already in this country, that the ability of people to move beyond their self-interest to concern for the common good of the whole society requires a kind of spiritual energy. The Pontiff also indicates that the Church, this is the structural Church, as teacher, has a role in forming and animating the consciences of the Catholic laity who have that more direct role as citizens vis-a-vis the state. The Church also has a more direct role, and I'm happy to see people here from Catholic Charities, the Pope says, through its charitable organizations. And those responsibilities are to meet the immediate needs of people who are needy and suffering. The Pope goes on to say that that role is always needed, even in the most just civil society, because there are always people suffering, people who are lonely, and people with material needs that require a response that extends beyond the material to care and refreshment of their souls. The more direct role, he says, reflecting upon our world, our increasingly globalized world, now takes place with a whole network, worldwide network of humanitarian assistance that's made possible by governmental agencies and humanitarian organizations. And for those who think that humanitarian relief can be the work of individuals alone, the Pope says, the solidarity shown by civil society thus significantly surpasses that shown by individuals. The Pope goes on in his first letter to pledge the readiness of the Catholic Church to cooperate with a wide range of charitable agencies, noting that we have a common goal, which is a true humanism, which acknowledges that man is made in the image of God.